Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're all well on this Thursday. Terrific Thursday. No, it's terrific Tuesday, isn't it? Just Thursday. Just Thursday. It's just Thursday. It's that day, we know. And today we've got some meat and potatoes to get into, as this is video 1 of 3. There is going to be 3 videos today, and I'm going to tell you what they are going to be about. So this first one, if you've seen the thumbnail, which if you've got autoplay on you may not have, but ultimately we're going to be looking at the whys, 3 whys, and that is why Bryan Kohberger did what he did. Is there any clues? Is there anything? Is there any specific thing that if it is Bryan Kohberger, we should kind of contemplate exactly what was going on in his head to make the decisions that he made? And then we're going to look at the crime itself. And the crime is going to be split into 2, which is going to be Ethan and Xana and Kaylee and Maddie. And throughout that 3 videos, we're going to be looking at why this crime could have potentially happened. Sounds amazing, right? Like you, because you're amazing. Anyway, I should stop kissing ass. No, I shouldn't, because you deserve it. So look, Bryan Kohberger, he's the guy who's in the frame at the moment, isn't he? He's the one who the majority of people believe. And to be fair, you know, what can we say? Some people are innocent until proven guilty. Some people believe that there is enough evidence to convict. There are people out there, we got into conversations yesterday, a few of us in comments, with people who was like, look, his DNA was on that knife sheath, and that is enough. Regardless of anything else, the fact that his DNA was on that knife sheath proves beyond a reasonable doubt that he did this crime. And I would say to anybody with that mentality is, then we don't need a trial then. We don't need anything. With that mentality, this is over. This is a done deal. Law enforcement should just save their money, save their time, and just shoot Bryan Kohberger for doing this crime, because there is no possible way whatsoever that his DNA could have got in that or on that knife sheath, and that knife sheath got in there unless he put it there while he did this crime. Okay, right, now we've got that little rant out of the way. So, look, Bryan Kohberger, from what we can see, what do we know about Bryan Kohberger? Bryan Kohberger seemingly is just this guy who pretty much lived a life like a lot of teens do, where they grow up, they suffer a bit of bullying because of their weight and things like that, and ultimately they make a decision to kind of change, to try and better themselves. But part of that journey, part of that growing up, part of that getting to where he was up until the point which this crime was then pushed forward, was that he would go through a narcotics issue that would see people around him lose their life, sadly. It would see him getting into a situation where he would steal from his family, his sister. He would take a phone, and this would result in his father going to law enforcement and basically grassing him up, saying, look, my son has done this crime and I want you to pull him in, set him straight, and set him on the straight and narrow. Now, what does that tell us? Now, in my humble opinion, that shows me that this is a family, quite a humble family. You know, he's got 2 sisters. One of them is in acting, the other one is in some form of, she's a counsellor of sorts. And it would appear to me that if Bryan Kohberger had have been sort of showing signs of dangerous behaviour, I don't know, but I feel that there's a potential that we would know about that by now. If it had been dangerous, I just feel that someone in his family would have come out. Someone would have known something from somewhere, because I feel the family would have got involved in it. I could be completely wrong, but the fact that we've learned that he stole his sister's phone and that his father got involved and it went that way, his record was quashed at the end, because it would appear that he did what was the purpose of this situation. It was that he got into education, he went forward, and he aspired, it would seem, to work within law enforcement. You have to ask your question as to whether Bryan knew that his life could have gone in a certain direction. But the fact that his dad did what his dad did, and law enforcement stepped in, and he seemingly come out the other side, maybe that is what spurred him to go into this educational setting and learn what he was learning, because he wanted to, he wanted to be part of what saved him, if you like. Because let's not make no bones about it, when you go into the world of narcotics, that's seldom do you get on the narcotics what Bryan Kohberger was on and it have a happy ending. There are happy endings, of course there are, but we know, that can very quickly descend into chaos and lives can be ruined. And they're ruined all over the world every single day in their thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. And he was going in what would appear to be a positive direction. And then this crime happens. He's accused of doing this crime. And what do we know? We know that he wasn't investigated in a sense like they found someone, or they found his car, or they were told about his car, and you're almost led to believe that someone said about his white Hyundai Elantra, and they were given this, this description of this intruder in this house, and it just seemed to match the driving license of Bryan Kohberger. And they were like, oh, he's got a white Hyundai Elantra, which we've seen on the camera, and he's got bushy eyebrows, and it says he's about 6 foot. He could be the guy. Let's look at. But they didn't pull him in. At that point, they didn't pull him in for questioning. They didn't pull him in and ask for DNA. Instead, they went on this convoluted journey that would see them going to his parents' house, going through refuse, and obtaining DNA from the refuse, and then building this tree in order to... I can't understand why they wouldn't have just pulled him in and done a DNA test and questioned him normally. Like they turned around and said that they had conducted, 60 to 90 interviews. They had brought multiple people around here. So I can't fathom, when it comes to Bryan Kohberger, why things were done in this manner. Because it almost leads you to believe that if they're going through bins to obtain DNA, and then you're seeing these images of these people entering into this home, and they're trying to hide their face and things like that, you're going to, and I'm not saying this is what happened, but I'm saying that's what it looks like. That's what law enforcement makes you start to question, because you think to yourself, why didn't you just pull the guy in? If he had a car that was seen in the area that time, and his description matched what you'd been given by an apparent eyewitness, and why just not pull him in and question him and ask to take his DNA? He had offered his DNA, put it on a DNA database himself, if you believe what his neighbour had said. But anyway, ultimately, you've got him being accused of this crime. But some of the things he does, in the event that he did it, you have to ask why. Like, if this was just a random act, if he just blew his nut, he was tired of how things were, tired of life, he'd been knocked back, had problems at the college where he was working, and he then decided, right, that's it, I'm gonna commit this crime. So why go from Washington, and we have touched on this before, but I want some answers. I want some people to reach out below and let me know. Why would you go from Washington to Moscow, Idaho to commit this crime? He would have been able to much more easily do reconnaissance closer to him. He was a fit guy. He ran. Apparently he had black clothing and a mask, if you believe that he entered into the house in Moscow, Idaho. So he was dressed. He had all the attire. So he could have very, very easily been covered by the dead of night, wearing black, got into a property much closer by, and committed this crime. Eradicated the need for his phone. He could have just left his phone at home, which he could have done anyway. Wouldn't have needed a car because he's fit. He could have just ran. And it just makes me wonder why he made a decision to go from where he was in Washington over to Moscow, Idaho. It doesn't make sense. Now, we know, because we've been told, that he frequented Moscow, Idaho on multiple occasions, and it was tried to be pushed, even though not proven. There's been nothing from a court perspective that's proven this, but he's been around the vicinity of 1122 King Road, which would then lead you to believe that something took him to that area, something took him to that specific house. So why did he end up being somehow fixated on that specific home? It's another why. Not to mention, because he's made the decision to go from Washington over to Moscow, Idaho, why rarely did he take his phone? Why? When you're someone who's training in what you're training, you know what you know, I can't fathom why he would have took his phone. Why didn't he just leave his phone at home? Why didn't he just leave his phone at home? And why did he indeed drive his car so close to 1122 King Road? Why was it so close? Why would somebody who's looking to commit this crime, and they're already all dressed in black, they don't come from that area because they've made the decision to go to somewhere where they're not known then, and they're dressed like they're dressed, but then they drive their white car round the area and then park outside it and then go in, and then they drive after they've done the crime, then they floor it out of there to bring more attention to this white Hyundai Elantra, if that's indeed what the car is. All these questions need to be answered, because Bryan Kohberger, from what we can see, isn't a stupid person. He seems to be quite intelligent. And intelligence doesn't go hand in hand with these decisions. And you can't just turn around and say, well, someone's book smart and street stupid. No, someone is either intelligent and they are well versed in how the law works and how DNA works and the way in which crimes of this nature would be investigated, and then make every single mistake possible to get caught. That doesn't make sense. And however people want to try and spin that, it doesn't make sense. Taking his phone, taking his car, driving his car up to the house doesn't make sense. Not when he could have left his phone at home. He could have driven his car. He could have got a different car. He could have hired a car. He could have driven a fair distance away from the house and ran to the house, leaving his car out of the sight of any of the cameras in this vicinity. He literally chose to do every single mistake. Every single mistake. Why? Why would somebody do that? Let me know down below these questions, and what are your questions with respect to Bryan Kohberger? Why? We can ask simple things, can't we? We can ask that, why would somebody who's seemingly getting on well academically, yes, we have heard that there's rumour that he was going through a disciplinary situation and potentially losing his job, but we also know that he was staying in the area. He still had the keys to his office. He hadn't relinquished his apartment. You know, he'd gone back to family for what would seemingly be the holiday period, but it seems that he had every intention of returning. So we just don't know. And this harsh mark on every single thing we've heard regarding being harsh towards females, that would just seem that he was just harsh towards everybody. Again, we've touched on this. He had a standard and he wanted the standard to be met. And that sometimes pissed people off, rubbed people up the wrong way. And he had an issue seemingly with one member of staff who they seemed to clash. But look, we've had people come out. We've not rarely had anybody come out and say anything massively damaging. And that's the strange thing. The strange thing is Bryan Kohberger seems to be an enigma. You know, he's someone who committed this crime, or that's what we're led to believe, but there is nothing really coming out. All this talk of him being incel, or him, again, being harsh to females, him breaking into someone's house or going into someone's house and putting cameras up to spy on them. All this is just media-driven garbage with no proof whatsoever to it. There just isn't. There's no proof to it. So where we also know through some of the interviews that Bryan Kohberger seemingly had a female, a girlfriend or a female friend. There's multiple accounts where people have said that he would be seen with a dark-haired female, seemingly Asian. She hasn't come forward. Now, we could say that nobody has come forward. Now, Bryan Kohberger's family seemingly have played it quite smart. They have kept very, very, very quiet. They've kept out of it. We know that Bryan Kohberger's mum can speak because she's been on social media and she has spoken on Bryan, especially him going to university and how she felt about him being on his own. Bryan Kohberger's father, someone could have spoken out, the sisters, but none of them have. And I think that is the wisest move. So if there is a female, if there is a girlfriend in Bryan Kohberger's life, there is a likelihood that she could come out. She could come out in the future. And then look at all the rumours that will immediately dispel. But why would Bryan Kohberger go from Washington to Idaho, non-death penalty to a death penalty state, drive his own car, take his phone, drive around? Why this house? Why, again, if there was just this need to kill, want to kill, why not do it closer to home? Let me know down below. And like I say, video 2 and video 3 will just touch on why these individuals, and was there any clues as to what and why this all could have happened. I'll catch you all in the next one.